AI as a technology, whether you're using ChatGPT, which has its own AI model, or you're using Google and you're Googling something and it has an AI summary at the top, it's everywhere. Like, it is integrated into our lives. And so it helps to even take a larger perspective and say, what relationship do I want to have with technology? How do I want to use it? What is the impact that I want to have? How do I want to make people feel? How do I want to feel? It almost goes back to those same higher level questions that you ask your audience and you talk about in your podcast, which is, what is my heart trying to tell me? What am I listening to there? What am I here to do in this life? So we are at this time where we can see both sides of things and how we choose to move forward. Going back to the intention piece, you have to choose to move forward and create the behaviors and be the example of the world that you wish to see.
Hi, welcome to The Way of the Heart. Today's conversation is with Callie Rojewski. She is passionate about helping people connect through marketing, brand creation, and most importantly, technology. Through her work, she wants to inform and empower people by understanding the impact of technology. And also, she wants to support them in creating a healthy relationship with it. I really had fun during this conversation, and I hope you get a new perspective, fresh perspective on technology and AI with the wisdom and the knowledge that Callie is bringing in this episode. Please enjoy this conversation. Callie, welcome to The Way of the Heart.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so ready for this conversation.
I am really excited. I mean, we've been talking about it before we started recording. I am most excited because I feel like this is a subject that is not in my comfort zone. And the thing that I have to bring to the table is basically what I bring to the table in any other scenario and situation, which is just like my aspiration to create a world that is more loving and wholesome and compassionate. And when I watched some of your content in regards to the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is AI and technology, I really loved your approach. And I love the fact that I feel like you're very aligned with that idea of creating a story that has a fresh perspective with this subject that is very, it's dominating like our day-to-day right now. And we are approaching it from a very fear-based perspective, which is very understandable. So I'm really excited to hear you talk about it, your perspective. I know you're very involved with it. So I'm really excited. But before we dive deep into all of those questions regarding that subject, I do want to start with learning a little bit more about you, if you feel comfortable sharing maybe some of your background. Where were you born? How was your childhood? What has shaped Callie today?
Wow, what a question. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, with AI technology, which I know we'll get into, it is something so all-consuming right now. And I guess because of the way I grew up or because of the things I've gone through in my life, I am just so desiring a different narrative out of the headlines that I see, especially because of the experience with the internet AI technology that I have. So a bit more about me. I am from Philadelphia. I'm doing this interview from Philadelphia. I'm part of a big family. I'm the oldest daughter. I have 3 younger sisters, so one of 4 girls. We're all within 5 years of each other. So we're all really close in age. I have a dog. I'm a dog mom. His name is Arlo. Use him for a lot of memes. But overall, like through, yeah. I, was always the type of person that if I wanted to do something, I was going to teach myself how to do it, and then I was going to just do it. And when I started my career, I was looking to get into graphic design, like take my art, which I was an artist. I was doing a bunch of art pieces at the time, and I wanted to just do art online and like be able to help and support small businesses. So the way that I taught myself to do that was online. At the time, like the school I was going to, they didn't offer those classes for me to take, like how to learn how to use social media for marketing, how to create websites, all of that stuff. I pretty much had to teach myself it. And I became, a graphic designer, a website designer, and that led to me learning about video and production and creative direction and branding and strategy, like all of the things basically that anybody would need to be able to figure out how to get the thing that they're trying to help people with to the people they are trying to help. That's what I always look at or think about with my work in marketing or branding or technology and, the nonprofit work that I'll share in a bit. It's always been about connection. How can you make sure to connect people and keep them connected to, their missions and the people who they're trying to help? But I, learned all of those skills, learned marketing, worked for small businesses, running my own freelance business. And then I made my way back to Philadelphia and started working for what's called the community of B corporations. So B corporations are socially and environmentally responsible companies. They go through a certification process to understand what their impact is on the environment, on the people who are involved in their business, and then the communities that they serve. And that work really inspired me. I worked with the leaders of the different businesses in that community. We would do global awareness campaigns to help people understand that they could make different choices as consumers and choose companies that could be trusted because they were vetted. Now, those types of businesses were more like clothing businesses or like Patagonia, or food businesses, consumer products like Ben and Jerry's. Those are two B corporations. And because I was such a, social media person, marketer, tech girl, I loved the idea of responsible technology companies. Social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, Meta and Instagram and Twitter, X and TikTok, all of those things. I just had learned so much personally, been able to connect and build friendships with people all over the world and like really live more fulfilling life because of how I interacted with the internet. And so after I worked there, my goal was to start working in the tech space and work with tech companies who were trying to do good, or like their problem that they were trying to solve really supported people and lit people up. And from there, like the thing that I realized I was really good at and what became really special about my career is that, again, with that connection as a through line, what I did best was like connect the companies with the people who were their happiest customers, and then just got everybody to work together to talk about what was working well and how people's lives were being changed because of these solutions that people were creating. It's called like customer marketing and customer advocacy, and how can you create extensions of your brand that people feel a part of and involved in and empowered around. So my work took me there, and in an effort to really push forward my responsible tech agenda, I found Cyber Collective. I got connected to the founder, and Cyber Collective is a nonprofit that I co-lead that's focused on empowering people and helping them understand the impact of technology and how to protect themselves online. Because we use technology all the time. We're connected, we're calling our parents, we're calling our siblings, we're, texting our children, whatever it is. We're just so integrated with laptops, devices, everything. And it's become such a method of communication that we rely upon, a form of information that we need, but we don't always know what the implications are of using that. And especially because right now in the world, regulations, even like research and how these these technologies are impacting us, and then regulations to come on top of that to protect people around these technologies. It's just not there yet. It's still falling into place. And so in the meantime, because our lives are changing so rapidly, bringing in more mindfulness into conversations around technology and helping to empower people more, whether things change tomorrow or whether they change 5 years from now, people can be empowered around their relationship with technology now and have a good balance with it and use it to live a fulfilling life and stay connected to people, despite how we often feel sometimes with that experience.
I didn't even know the 70% of what you share, which is basically what took you here. And just this idea of working with companies in basically bringing to light what is actually working, and that's what you really were thriving with, really shows me why at the beginning of like learning about your work, I felt that, oh, we need to have a conversation. I feel like I recently kind of like detailed a little bit more the mission of this podcast, and the questions that are the North Star of the podcast is, who am I and what does the heart have to do with that? And I feel like something that is very important about human beings in general is the ability and the capacity that we have to communicate and connect, which is basically what you are doing. And so the story that we tell about the things that are happening, the things that we're creating is incredibly important because it is really the foundation of how the story is going to unfold. So I feel like just as if you can approach the things that you do, like what you did, focusing on the things that are working in a company, that's kind of like setting the programming and the focus of the story, right? So like you're really focusing on the good things. Like it's not to say that the bad things, quote unquote, are not happening, but how can we amplify what is actually working? And I feel like that is kind of like what I can sense that is really your mission. So I'm so excited to dive deeper into the work that you're doing. So I don't know exactly if you want to maybe expand a little bit more about Cyber Collective or actually your personal project, which even just the name of it, I love. So if you can maybe share that with us and expand on either or both, whatever you want to start with.
When I found Cyber Collective, I came across an organization that was talking about things I felt like other people weren't talking about, which was cybersecurity, the impact of technology, data privacy, and social justice. What technology's effects were on human beings. So I felt like I really found a community of people who were creative or were very technical, were coding or whatever it was. They were looking at their relationship with technology differently. And through that experience and what we've been building with Cyber Collective, it really helped me develop it really encouraged me to come forward with my own marketing agency, my own, YouTube channel, my own concept that I talk about, which is this concept of online and IRL. And that is about how we look at our online lives and our offline lives as two separate things. Online and IRL. IRL is like a term or abbreviation for in real life. We look at them like it's two separate things. When online becomes too much, we disconnect and we go offline. But the reality is, because of how integrated technology is with our lives now, we don't actually always have that choice that we think that we can make. And our lives are very integrated with technology. I could decide to log off all I want and then still walk down the street and be recorded by somebody's Ring doorbell outside. And it's a misconception that around things that we actually have control and power over within technology. And then it's also a misconception about things that we think we don't have power and control over, like what our algorithm brings us, or what the news throws at us, or how our Instagram content makes us feel. And in general, because my main mission in life is to connect people and help people stay connected to what's important to them, and help them connect to the people they're trying to find and live fulfilling lives, I was so fascinated the more that I learned about how technology works and what is behind it, how the data ecosystem works, realizing that the way that people look at how these integrate into their lives is so different than what actually exists. And then the way that people feel that they are disempowered and what they don't have control over around technology, AI, etc., is different. It's actually you have more control over certain aspects than you think. So my mission with online and IRL is to help people just look at their relationship with technology, question it, and think about things differently. I talk about in the beginning of my YouTube videos, I say that we talk about our relationship with technology and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, what your attachment style is with your technology, so that you can make sure that these platforms, these devices, all of these things are serving you in your purpose and what you want to learn. I also, that piece of it evolves all the way into the work that I do, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, I am a marketer, I am a brand designer, I'm an experience creator. And so what ends up happening is I end up working with small business owners, companies, and that's why I found Cyber Collective. I started working with people to understand how to use these tools in a way that can keep them connected to themselves and help them connect to the people they're trying to find, whether it's like-minded people, whether it's customers, and then how can they push back and make it sustainable for them and authentic and true to them. That's not practiced like for the algorithms. That's not bending over to the algorithms or whatever Meta decides that they want you to do that day. Because a lot of marketing advice that you'll get online is very much like, you need to post 3 times a day. You need to start your TikTok off putting your lip gloss on and like have like 3 different like there's all of these different things that you can do that you maybe should do, but you have to find the balance with like what comes naturally to you to be able to achieve that end goal through these mediums.
I think that you mentioned something that in my eyes, which again, I have a very immature, I would say, perspective of what technology and AI is at the moment, because the way that I use it is very basic. I ask ChatGPT to help me with my grammar, things like that. And that's as far as I go. I mean, I recently started using some AI tools or enhancements to some programs that I use. But you mentioned the importance of staying connected to ourselves too, which I think is a huge part of the reason why we fear AI so much. I think both staying connected to ourselves and the relationship that we have with these tools is at the basis of this unpleasant and discomfort feeling that we are having towards these new technologies and these new tools, because I think it's a reflection of our awareness of who we are, as human beings. I think that when we fear, and we can talk a little bit more about like the basic fears that we have, not the basic, but like the most common fears that we have around these technologies, and maybe like your take on that and how you see that. But what I see is that we have identified ourselves so much with being a human that in which that equals being productive, just working. And we are so disconnected with our true nature, which to me, being a spiritual person, really goes into that. We have to ask that deep question of who are we beyond this physical body and this machine that produces? Because when we go deeper into that realm, then we can really see who we are, and we can separate a little bit what we do versus who we are, and then technology becomes not something that we fear, but something that perhaps we can hold hands with and work together with. So there's something that you have talked about. I believe that it was a conversation that you had with someone else in the field in your YouTube channel, in which you talk about the importance of humans collaborating with AI. And that what sparked in me was this idea that we have of competition versus collaboration. How do you see that? How would you talk about collaborating with AI?
I think that's a great question. And what you just spoke about really described what a lot of people are feeling, which is the fear of the unknown with AI technology. And also AI technology has been around for a long time, like many years. What's happening right now in the mainstream with the introduction of ChatGPT, it's like AI's coming out to the public. It's very accessible to people now. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue. And so with that, makes it feel like there's all of this change that come with it, and it's going to come for your jobs. It's going to change your life. It's going to make your work irrelevant, and that's the narrative that's being told in some scenarios. And it's also going to steal your work and use it and pretend it's its own, which is an example of what a lot of creative people are facing right now if they're posting their work online. If they're using tools and platforms that they've always used for a long time, for example, like Adobe, these companies are now using their information and how they're putting information out there to train their AI models. So of course, all of that comes with a lot of fear and a lot of trepidation. And I think what social media has especially done, or technology has especially done, has created fear and also created this freeze state for people. You have so much information coming at you, so much narratives around why you should be concerned about this technology and why it's going to change your life and why you're screwed, that what we're used to with that is just like being frozen and having to watch something happen that you don't want to happen. That's what we're used to. But in this situation with these tools, now again, like I don't want to, what I'm about to say doesn't come without acknowledgement of the negative aspects that we still have to figure out with society. But what these tools can do is be another like paintbrush in your art kit, or another tool to support what you're doing, and another way to allow you to tap into things even deeper that you were trying to do before, but almost couldn't because you didn't have the time or the space or like the brain power in order to be able to do it. What AI can do, or tools like ChatGPT, it has you like one of the people who we talked to, or one of the people who I listened to at another panel, they said it allows you to like just pump the gas pedal on that. All of a sudden, ideas that you had or concepts that you had can come to life so much faster because you have tools like a ChatGPT where you can go back and forth and like understand that. Now, I understand, like, especially for people in certain jobs, that it's scary where it feels like you're replaceable. And what we have to understand is that when new tools come out, that does change the game, but it doesn't mean a human being is replaceable. The task that they might have been doing can be optimized, could be automated, but that human being still has value to add based on their lived experience, their perspective, and how they would manage all of these new tools at their fingertips. And that's what we're going to have to figure out. It will be rocky in the interim, but I have already seen how people, copywriters, for example, have started to use these tools more to their advantage. And we have to navigate this rocky road till we can find a good balance where we feel like, again, it's not replacing people, but we're working with it. But when you look at a tool that has AI or uses AI as something that can be an extension of your magic, of what you're trying to create, to help you make that tangible for people faster, that does change your perspective around it. I also wanted to share like another use case that I've been seeing of AI and technology pop up. I was on Reddit the other day and I was reading this thread for people with neurodivergence who have different, experiences in their emotional intelligence, how they manage different things within their brains, right? And people were talking about how they use ChatGPT to basically see around corners and things that they wouldn't normally see, help them be more successful if they're struggling with anxiety or depression and need like more motivation or need help like figuring out like the right order of tasks to be able to get things done, which is something they don't always have capacity for. People were talking about how they've used ChatGPT to communicate better with people in their lives, to help them better understand people in their lives and their perspectives and point of views, to be able to maintain relationships and improve relationships. And people were also talking about just having another space for them to process things that they were going through and help them understand themselves even better. Again, we all are going to have to walk forward. This is not going to be an easy path because there are still unknowns, and you do have to be careful with what you share with these technologies because it's not going into a void. It is going somewhere and it is being like analyzed. But for the first time, people felt like there was weights lifted off their shoulders in these certain areas. Their relationships were getting better. Their understanding of their lives and the way that they managed their lives and could live fulfilling lives again was getting better. And so if that is an opportunity that we have on the table, that's something that we shouldn't disregard or forget about with all of these, challenging things, like fear, things that we should be afraid of and we should think critically about coming at us. We have to remember that we can balance both, because it's not the first time in history that we've had to deal with uncertainty, figure out difficult questions, advocate for each other and for our rights. It's not the first time, but I do believe that it is going to be different because the space that this frees up allows people to live in different parts of their brain, allows them to spend their time differently. And we are at a tipping point where we can either make the decision to use it to be 10 times as more productive and 10 times like more intense because we have that ability, or if we use it to be, maybe a little bit more productive, but just have like 10 times the amount of time back to ourselves and use that time to connect with each other and live more fulfilling lives.
I mean, I feel like for me, the relationship in general with technology and like even like social media, right? Like that was kind of like our first relationship with something outside of ourselves that, at least for me, I had to really confront and question, like you said at the beginning. Like we really have to question, like, what is my relationship with this? Which I think implies that we have to take a lot of responsibility personally. And I think that, going back to what we said before, like what I said before, because we have been so used to living a life that is based on performance and productivity, then we are very detached from our personal responsibility of who we are and what's our mission personally. Right? Like, I feel like this is really forcing us to ask a deeper question of like, what is actually my purpose? Like, we hear this term thrown out a lot in like the personal development, world. But I feel like that is what this technology is actually forcing us to do. Like, what is every single human being in this planet meant to do instead of produce?
I love that, because also I think very naturally, especially in the United States, productivity is associated with personal responsibility, where it's the one and the same. If you're not productive, then you are not being responsible for what you're here to do. But that is the illusion of like the society we live in and the systems that exist. And if that were different, if productivity is taken away and it's not something that's like on your shoulders, but it's different, then what does exist? And how do you find that? How do you understand? How do you even recognize that void and fill that void? You could ask ChatGPT. No,
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I love to look out to nature and see the natural, process of things and the cycles of things. And, a huge part of the process of nature is bringing to life something that has been in the dark, in the void, right? Like the seed that is under the soil. There's so much unknown. There's like, we have no idea what is going to come out of that, but that seed comes, like, it has everything that it needs from the inside, and it breaks, the shell, and whatever is meant to be born comes from the inside. And I feel like that is what we are feeling, and that's that discomfort of like our shell that has protected us in some ways, the productivity and all, the doing and whatever is kind of like breaking, and we're feeling that discomfort. So I love, and you mentioned this before, but I wrote it down because when you said it and I heard you saying this, I was like, I love that it would be helpful if we see these tools as mirrors to our unique magic, because we can actually use them to amplify that, but we have to begin with asking ourselves, what is my magic, right?
Absolutely. I think about that a lot with social media, right? And the opportunity that social media brought people, because you had the ability to talk about the topics you wanted to talk about, display your talents, create the things that you want to create. And more than ever before, people could find you. People who resonated with you, people who understood you, they could make their way to you no matter where they were in the world, right? Like that's how we've never met in person, IRL, but we know each other through online and like different groups that we found ourselves in. And that is a beautiful thing. That's access. That's things that, haven't existed before. But at the same time, with that greater connection and increased connection also comes the full picture. That's the best part of it. But we have to also recognize that, like, with that, for more connection, other things that are a part of that whole experience are affected too. So social media connects us to more people than ever, more people who we relate to, even on a heart, purpose basis, can find us, but we might not see more people in life. We may be connected to more people than ever, but we could very well be experiencing that from the walls of our own home without ever having to go outside and actually interact with another person. We are more connected than ever around the world, but the effects on the environment and what happens because of that connection is not good. There's other people around the world who are part of that supply chain and process that are suffering because of these connections. ChatGPT uses like tons of gallons of water every time you send a message to it, and that's not good. That's not sustainable. That's not good for the environment. That's an impact that it's having that we have to figure out. So with this connection, while we are more connected than ever, we are also more connected and more responsible to things, I believe, that we weren't connecting the dots on before. And so it's just like anything in nature where there's light and dark, and there's like the beauty and the harshness that comes with it. There's a full picture that we are now more exposed to, that we have the power and personal responsibility to be aware of, and the agency and autonomy to make choices about, to have intention about how to move forward.
First of all, the fact that you said that ChatGPT uses tons of water, I'm like, wait, what? Can you expand or explain a little bit more?
Well, everything is connected, right? So ChatGPT, again, it's not just created in a void. Any technology, any program that we use, any software that we use has to have places for that data to go and be processed. So there are like physical data centers that exist, and ChatGPT and the data centers that work to process that information it's getting and then train the AI technology based on that data, they have to be cooled down. And that's where water is used. Water is used to keep those computers, those data centers cooled down. In addition to that, just because of the energy alone, it's using a ton of electricity. It has carbon footprints because of it. So again, with this theme of connectivity and online versus offline, your online experience doesn't just exist like in your browser tabs. That goes to these physical places. It has these environmental, physical, in real life effects, and we don't often think about that. But we will now be able to hear about it and learn about it. We were just pulling up the articles and the research and the studies that were on it because we do have that at our fingertips. So it just also shows like we have to challenge ourselves and understand with this access of information period, there is more power that we do have because of it. So what are we going to do about it? And I think a lot of that starts with talking about it so that people can know that these things exist.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that, because you are 100% correct. It's not something that at least I ever think about, which is part of the reason why the first time I heard you talk about, in real life and online, I was like, this is fascinating. And you see the world from a completely different perspective, and you get to integrate two things that I would have never thought about. It's fascinating. And what comes to mind is, the ability that some of us have into spending some time and researching and learning about this and taking responsibility for that, because it is clear that not everyone has that ability, not everyone in the world. Like, I think about, I come from Colombia, I was raised there, and it is a third world country. And for the most part, the majority, I can't remember exactly the percentage, but it is over 50 to 60% of the population. They live basically in survival mode. So of course, this is not a population that is, we should expect to be spending their time, learning about this. But if anyone is listening to this and we have the capacity and the time, the ability to be spending some of our free time in learning about this, I think that is one of the very few contributions that we can start, adding to this topic, right? And another thing that comes to mind is a lot of times we fear things that we don't know, right? Like what you said is the uncertainty. So the more we learn about it, then we can at least have a little more grasp in the subject and fear less, have more agency, like you said. We have the power with this basic foundation of understanding of how things work. Like, I would have never thought that water was needed. So it also brings back this idea of being very intentional with the way that we use the technologies. And this is something that I've heard you talk about also, the importance that intention has in the way that we relate to AI. Would you want to expand a little bit in how you see intention and how it plays out in this relationship that we have with technology?
Yeah, I think when somebody is using AI, intention is it's just an important thing to center and ask yourself and question, because AI as a technology, whether you're using ChatGPT, which has its own AI model, or you're using Google and you're Googling something and it has an AI summary at the top, it's everywhere. Like, it is integrated into our lives. And so it helps to even take a larger perspective and say, what relationship do I want to have with technology? How do I want to use it? What is the impact that I want to have? How do I want to make people feel? How do I want to feel? It almost goes back to those same higher level questions that you ask your audience and you talk about in your podcast, which is, what is my heart trying to tell me? What am I listening to there? What am I here to do in this life? Those questions around and setting your intention with AI and technology, it all comes back to those main questions of how can we connect with ourselves? How can we connect with other people? And what is the impact that we're trying to have? I would say with AI and things like, and the facts that we shared about its impact on the environment and everything, whenever I hear those types of facts, those conversations, they just really make me they make me so frustrated, they make me so angry, and they make me just want to freeze and never use this technology again. But then I think about the facts that I also know, which is that we have been able to, in recent history, create change because of how connected we are. How connected we are through social media, create faster change than what we're waiting to see, create faster change than government regulations would, than other things would. Those things are still important and critical, but because of the access we have to each other in the interim, a lot of things can happen. Even the community of companies that I worked with before that would go through the certification process, we worked with a range of global companies who not only were already creating different business models for their types of business, they were able to learn and connect with each other and get best practices for each other to be more sustainable companies in their models because they were connected with each other. From a social perspective, right now there's a lot of terrible things going on in the world, in the Congo, in Palestine. And while our media systems change because of many different factors, people talk about things online and are able to draw attention and bring in aid and donations to people in need when they need them. But we do exist in a time right now where you have to hack the algorithms and the tools as they exist today to do so, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. And it also doesn't mean that pressure, that organization of all of us working together doesn't go anywhere. It has an impact, and it does put pressure to be able to see the better solutions that we want to see at the other end. So even if there are no immediate solutions, having a better understanding and then also understanding what you can do today to support the outcome that you want to support, that can all be a part of logging on and logging off, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm this conversation that I had with my husband the other day is coming to me as we talk about this. I think I've mentioned this before, but anyways, the audience doesn't know this, but my husband is someone that I feel like he has a soul that is from the future, similar to you. Like you two understand technology and just relate to it in a completely different way. And I was cooking and I was cleaning. After cleaning the whole day, I cooked and then I had to clean. I'm bringing this back to like a very day-to-day, mundane kind of like practical thing. And I was like, I would definitely have AI clean up after I cook. Like if that was a technology that is coming in the near future, I would definitely do that. And he's like, yeah, I mean, even cooking too. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe not every day, but I personally like cooking, and I see cooking as a creative outlet for me. It's like whenever I don't have the ability to start a project like an art piece or something like that, cooking is kind of like the quickest thing that I have to feeling that creative, juice and spark that I feel. So it brings it back to intention and like the values that we have, and again, who we are at the core. Because I was telling him, well, first of all, I don't think that that's something that you would actually like. He just recently had a delivery service, deliver his meals for, I think it was like almost a month. And I want to say he said maybe 5 times during that month, like, I really miss cooking, because he likes cooking. So I was thinking about that. I was like, well, these are the type of things that we need to pay attention to as technology evolves. Like, what do we really value? Because I feel like a lot of us, we don't take the time to actually sit down and ask that question. Like, what do we really value? What do we really like to do? What brings us joy? What fulfills us? Maybe I'm not gonna have the capacity or the mood to cook every single day, but I know it brings some joy because it fulfills my creative juices. So in the future, if there's a technology that can perhaps replace that, either I have to be very mindful of the fact that I can remember that that was something that I like to do, or find a way in which I can actually replace that experience if that's something that AI is doing, right? So I also think that, to me, and this is why at the beginning of the conversation I said the only thing that I can bring to the table is this idea of like connecting with who we really are, and then bringing that, the watering of the hope and the how can we build this in a way that unfolds in a wholesome way so that we can all benefit from it, right?
Yes, I have a few examples that I think you would find very interesting along this thread, because part of intention and what comes with intention is also understanding the integrity of the situation and what you're trying to maintain. And integrity is also very close to the way of the heart, right? And when you think about human beings, our human experience, the work that we do, the fulfillment we find, all of that, that line of integrity and how we navigate helps me think about how I would balance. But what you're speaking about with cooking, for example, those pieces of our human experience that are important to us that we don't want to lose, if we set the intention to use technology with it to maintain the integrity of the experience and why that is so special to us, that could be, so game changing in how we walk forward and, walk through life together and evolve. And an example that I can give you, I was at this conference and somebody was speaking there, and I had heard this type of story. It was at this conference first, and then it was at another conference where this tribe, there was one based in Portugal and then one based in South America. And they were talking about how TikTok allowed them to preserve their culture. They were facing challenges. They were facing discrimination. They were facing, just effects in today's day and age of colonization, like many people do, many oppressed cultures do. And they were facing it so badly that their traditions were almost going to go extinct. But because of social media, because of cell phones that the younger generation brought in, they were able to capture stories, capture wisdom from their elders, capture their language, because we often, we think about language not often as dimensional as it is. Like if you only speak one language, especially in the United States, you expect one language back, and that is just not how the rest of the world is or how many people's experiences are. But especially ancient languages like that don't exist anymore, technology and social media and how people were using their phones allowed that to be captured and capsuled in time. And also another example is people who captured some of those things that existed in different traditions, different cultures, different parts of history are now using technology to recreate them. There was somebody I met who was an architect designer, and he was using technology and AI programs, taking pictures of old ruins, things that existed, and then recreating the way that people specifically built these houses and their homes in the same way, in the same approach, because he was able to close the gap there. So I share those examples to say that technology, again, it comes with so many challenging things, just like anything else that we've experienced in this world. And with intention, when you're saying my intention is to use it to connect with people more, my intention is to use it to help me cook, maybe not in a way to replace what I enjoy, but to help me make me enjoy it more. Share a recipe with me that relates to this year or of what that I vacationed in this one country that could remind me of my vacation or something. And then you can do it with your partner. There's just different ways of looking at things that technology can help us get to, can help us remember, can help us appreciate even more compared to what we did before. But again, with anything, it's like one side of the coin, there's a coin, with one side of the coin, there's the other side of the coin. One of the conversations that we're having right now, an article just popped up and I've been talking to people on my team about it, is around this conversation of OnlyFans creators outsourcing an additional payment feature that they can do to chat with their customers. They're outsourcing it to AI. They're using they're not the person behind the screen, they're outsourcing it, they're using it. And people were saying, if the oldest profession in the books is being outsourced to AI, what are you supposed to do then? Right? So it was just so interesting to hear that story and be in that conversation talking about the ethics of that, and then go on my phone the next morning reading that huge Reddit thread of people being like, thank God for AI or would never understand my husband. Like, and so we are at this time where we can see both sides of things and how we choose to move forward. Going back to the intention piece, you have to choose to move forward and create the behaviors and be the example of the world that you wish to see. And I believe, like the example with the young people bringing smartphones into their tribes and speaking with their elders and capturing their wisdom, that is connection to things that we would have been disconnected from language, disconnected by generations, disconnected from location. So maybe more of that, when I think about what we have in front of us.
I think that that is a good segue to something that perhaps you can help me with. Maybe there's no answer to this, but I saw in the Cyber Collective website a question, I guess, like there are three main questions that are presented there as like the mission, basically. And I think I want to read them just so that I actually get them right. So one of the questions is, what are we giving up in exchange for convenience? The other question, which is really the one that, what impact does technology really have on us, and how can we protect ourselves and our loved ones online? Is there anything that you can, express here with these questions? Of course, we've been talking about it, but if there's anything like specific that comes to mind that you would like to share related to those questions.
Yes, when I hear those questions, when you share that, of course, those are things that we're asking ourselves all the time over on the Cyber Collective team in the conversations we're having with people. But what I think about when I hear those questions, they're big questions. What are we giving up in exchange for convenience? How can we protect our families? Those are such big questions. And then I'm reminded that so much of the power and the change we wish to see comes in simply asking them and having that moment of, wait a minute, like what is happening here? What am I not seeing? What could be different? What could we start talking about or sharing with others that could help people and help protect people? Like what I also shared, you might have read on the website, is like, that feeling is not new that people have, that I'm using this is a little too easy. I know that I am being used by other people who I don't want to be used by. I know that there's something here that doesn't make sense, that this might not end up right for me. And if we can get people to just ask those questions and pause, then people will start to ask those questions more loudly, get other people to ask those questions, and then together we can start demanding better outcomes and then designing those better outcomes together. It all starts with those questions and that mindfulness, even protecting yourself online right now from scams that exist, from trading your data to places that you don't want to trade it to for convenience. Asking those questions helps us make decisions in the moment that we actually have control over. Mindfulness is the thing that protects you from clicking on a link in your email that you shouldn't click on. Asking those questions allows you to, when you're at the airport and you're figuring out if you need to actually get your picture taken or if you can opt out of it, you have to ask because they're not going to tell you. It starts with that question. So that's what I think of when I hear those things.
I'm smiling because I didn't think mindfulness was a word that was going to come out in this conversation. I am a mindfulness meditation teacher. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes.
But as I hear you speak, you're literally talking about the actual process of meditating in the mindfulness, with the mindfulness approach, which of course and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because I'm seeing the similarities, so I have to bring it to the real life. Because, with the mindfulness approach, one of the first things, mindfulness has two aspects to it, like the practice, the formal practice of sitting and meditating. One is shamatha and the other one is vipassana. And shamatha is the moment that you pause, the moment that you take the time to just like stop. And then you kind of like come into alignment, you calm yourself, your system kind of like stops for a second. And then Vipassana can also be translated as insight. And that is the part of the practice in which you inquire. That is the part of the practice in which you basically ask questions. So as I hear you speak, I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is literally the practice of mindfulness, which is incredible, because I think that lately in the conversations I've had, a lot of times the conversations have ended, and actually we were both in one of them, with we have a question and we don't have an answer. And can we actually sit on the fact that there's a question that doesn't have an answer right now? And can we be present enough to actually see that unfold? And I feel like this topic, more than any other topic, is asking us to do that. Can we, like, how do we want this chapter, this story to unfold? And can we be present enough and mindful enough? And I think that, you know, coming back to what you said before, the integrity aspect of this, can we be connected with our heart and our soul enough that we can actually bring forth something that is going to create a better picture than we are thinking is going to happen, right? I just went on that tangent because I thought it was like beautiful to see, you know, the intersection of those two worlds.
Absolutely. It's mindfulness, and it's also somatic practices. It's collectivism and like values of being a part of a collective. With the somatic practices, which I think about in parallel to mindfulness, we talk a lot about this within our cyber collective method and how we approach talking about these topics and educating people. Somatic practices are also how you're mindful of your body. That's how I understand them. And we very much don't realize, because our minds are so engaged with what we see on technology, what we're listening to, and the information that we're consuming. All of that energy has an effect on our body. We're disconnected because we're so connected to what we're getting, that we're disconnected from our bodies. And therefore, we're more disconnected physically from the world around us, from people around us. But technology, the way our brain recognizes it, there was a study that I learned about years ago that it's so painful when you lose your phone, because your brain processes your phone as an extension of your arm. And so your body somatically reacts to that because it's so used to the value it's bringing. It somatically reacts to that like, your limb is missing. And it is not, you know, it is sounds like such a superficial thing, but what they were finding, because of your neural pathways and everything, again, is like, it's not that you can just be disconnected. We are all one. It is all connected, between your phone to your laptop, to your brain, to your body, to nature, to the friends that you're connected with on Facebook around the world. It is that big. It is that connected. It is that tied to each other. And so, yeah, I just think like it's a really powerful thing to look at it from that lens, because then it starts to show you that the wisdom that exists in other areas, the wisdom that you have as a meditation and mindfulness coach, the wisdom that somebody may have teaching somatic practices to helping people heal. All of a sudden, all of these things apply to how we can move forward. Well, what can happen then, because we have known that these things for centuries upon centuries can help people. So it's just a beautiful thing to have that come back full circle.
I love that you brought that back full circle, because as you were speaking, I'm thinking, well, we're talking about the fear of uncertainty, the fear of asking, who am I really beyond this body? And then when I hear you speak about, you know, our bodies feeling like, or thinking that our phone is an extension of our arm, and the reality of things is that everything is connected, then in some way, what is happening with technology and with these tools is that they're basically reflecting the reality of things, and we're just coming to term with that. And then it's so uncomfortable to accept the fact that everything is connected. And then I think that what I bring back to this, my biggest mission in this journey with both myself growing personally and also with what I'm doing with the podcast, is bringing everything back to loving, and not only ourselves, but loving everyone around us. But I think everything starts with like that self-love. And it's ultimately self-love to me is like, how are we relating to ourselves? Meaning, how are we relating to everything else, right? So it comes full circle. What's the relationship that we have with everything that is actually mirroring the consciousness that we are, the energy that we are? So I don't know if there's anything else that you would want to add to this conversation so we can wrap it up. We've been talking for almost an hour, and I want to be, respectful with your time. So is there anything that is coming to mind that you would want to share?
Yeah, there is one more story and one more takeaway that I'd want to share. So with what you mentioned, which is so beautiful, it's like we're keep going back to, in this conversation about AI and technology, back to your relationship and intention you set with yourself, how that extends past you and impact others, and then what that means to be a part of the bigger picture. And then all of that still comes back to the oneself and then goes back bigger. What I would also say, as we process that and understand the beauty of that, is to also be mindful of not staying frozen and stuck, appreciating that stage. But then once you can recognize it, moving back into living those actions. And that means understanding, how many times you're typing into ChatGPT during the day and what that effects that could have. It means understanding what you're sharing with these tools and whether or not you want to do so. And it also means understanding how these things are affecting each other, because there's ways to, like I mentioned in some of my stories before, use technology or push back on the bigger companies who have more control to advocate for yourself and your communities and your loved ones. One of the stories that I wanted to share was recently, the British rapper MIA. Do you remember any of her songs, or are you familiar with her?
No, I think I grew up in Colombia for all of those years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this woman, a British rapper, or MIA, I will say, I don't know her pronouns. She just came out at a recent concert wearing this whole silver outfit. It was like a tinfoil hat, and everybody was like, "What are you wearing?" And it was a whole clothing line that she launched that was anti-surveillance clothing. So from a hat to, shirts, etc., underwear and purses and phone cases. The intention behind that clothing was to protect people from 5G electromagnetic waves and protect them and block them from those magnetic waves that come from our devices, that come from the internet. It's to protect their data and them being tracked, and these things affecting their bodies, and how big tech companies gather information on us, gather data, and then use it against us. There are many people in the world, many people with different lived experiences that face way more vulnerabilities because of who they are when they are exposed to walking down the street and having, again, things like that Ring doorbell, taking information in about them. What I want to share about that story, what she created was to protect people against technology and how technology is being used against them. And so as we navigate these things and figure out how to integrate them into our lives, that collective piece of working together to protect each other is also a piece of this. Doing it creatively, still using technology. She used a type of fabric that's technology in itself, right? But those types of things, those types of conversations, not losing sight of the fact that even though this is convenient, even though we're able to hear really cool stories, we're able to learn more online, we're able to live fulfilling lives, share information, etc., these things are still happening where it's still a critical time. We have a lot of personal responsibility with where we are right now. And you can go so far if you ask those questions, and you can go even farther if you use your voice, and then you can go even farther if you're MIA creating a clothing line around it, making a statement and solutions for her people in her community. So I would just like to share that takeaway of, it doesn't stop, because it doesn't stop with us, right? It doesn't stop with you and how you're using it, your intention and the impact that you wish to create, and the way that you choose to connect your heart. The way of the heart moving forward is with you, with everybody, with AI, with technology, but it's like for everybody.
I love that. I love that you answered a question that I was gonna ask, and it's interesting because it's happened in pretty much every conversation that I've had, that the question gets answered, which is, how is all of this tapping into the wisdom of the heart? And you just responded that so beautifully. I love every single thing that you have shared. I love, again, the fresh take that you bring into this. And I love that you are also very grounded in saying we are not ignoring the very real things that are happening that we should be careful and cautious with. But there's also a fresh take and the relationship that we can create with all of these technologies, and how we can actually leverage that for, the wellness and like the well-being of all of us. I ask this question to some of the guests just out of curiosity, because I have a project that I want to work on. What do you think love is?
Oh, I didn't expect you to answer this question. And I also didn't expect to have sort of an answer, because I've been listening to so many YouTube videos about what love is in many aspects. A lot of the videos or things that I've been learning on my own talk about love as being a frequency and an exchange of energy, and that existing at such a level that it's untouchable, that it can never go away, that always exists, and it lifts people up, because love can exist without any obligation, any requirement. It can just exist as an appreciation of the thing. I believe you can love in many different ways, and love can exist in so many different ways in all directions. But when I think of it as that energy, that connection of appreciation for how something is, no matter what, all different light, dark, all different size, shapes, everything. It's a true appreciation of existence, is how I feel.
I had to take a deep breath with that answer because I loved it so much. The last question that I'm going to ask, and I think that you've been speaking to this, what do you think the world needs the most right now?
I think the world needs empowerment. I think, especially in this age of information overwhelm and how our day-to-day lives are designed, it is very easy to feel buried, to feel weighted down, to feel like you don't have control, to feel like you can't influence, to feel like you can't help people who you want to help. And I believe that empowerment starts with that moment. I forget the term that you use, what the actual term is in mindfulness, but it's about pausing to look and ask yourself, where do I actually have the ability to influence, to change, to do things differently? It's about empowerment, and it's about supporting each other to be relentless in seeking that and moving forward one step at a time.
A visual came to mind from a recent guided meditation that I facilitated, and we talked about mindfulness in general as a stop sign in the streets, right? Like you stop so you can have a better view of what's going on around you, and then you have the agency with that information to decide whether it's time for you to go, to make a right, to make a left, whatever it was your intention. Callie, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can people find your work? If you can share that with us.
Yes. So Please, if you're listening to this and you're interested in connecting, please connect with me. You know, I'm all about that. You can find me online on YouTube. My name's Callie Rojewski. On Instagram, my handle is at Callie and Co. And I talk about these topics on my YouTube. You can connect with me and work with me for marketing, for brand experience, all of that through those channels. And then Cyber Collective, you can also go check out. We work with a bunch of different people to create content, bring these conversations out in the world, in the internet. We also offer resources and tools to help you build what we call internet street smarts. The more people who have internet street smarts, the more they can teach their friends and family internet street smarts, and the more we all will not be getting got out here online, because it is a crazy time. So definitely go look to Cyber Collective for those resources to continue the conversation, and also get involved if you're passionate about these topics, if you're passionate about how this shows up. I am we are launching through Cyber Collective a bunch more ways people can get involved, volunteer, work with us to start talking more about these topics and sharing more stories, so that more people can be inspired to set that intention and understand what that could mean for them through those examples.
Inspired and empowered. That's what you're doing. Thank you so much, Callie. I know this conversation is going to be very fulfilling for many of us, and it definitely brings a fresh perspective, which is really what you know how to do best. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Callie. So I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation. I find that when I talk to someone that is so knowledgeable in a specific topic, especially something that is not in my wheelhouse, it is very refreshing. It is very uplifting. There are many things that we can be cautious about when it comes to AI and technology. And at the same time, there's also room for a story in which we are part of it, and that we actually have a lot of intention and power behind it. So I really love all the reminders that Callie shared with us throughout the conversation. And one of my intentions with this podcast is to cultivate hope for the world that we want to see. And ultimately, I think this is what I got out of this conversation. So I hope that you feel somewhat the same. I hope that this conversation gives you some hope when it comes to this new era of technology and AI that we are seeing around us. If you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, please feel free. And I really invite you to interact with me through comments, through likes, follows, subscriptions, and all of this. This will really help the channel and the podcast in general to be shared with others. So if you think that anyone will find anything interesting out of this conversation, if they can benefit from it, please share with them. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and your presence, and I will see you in the next episode.